Hi everybody, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you've joined us because today we are bringing you Allan Kelly. Now, if you don't know Allan, he is an expert in the industry and Agile world. He's also written many books. Here's just a few of them. Agile product ownership, entrepreneurs, succeeding with OKRs in Agile, the little book of requirements and user stories, and continuous digital, an Agile alternative to projects for the digital business users. And also Project Myopia. I wasn't going to mention that, but I thought I'd mention it. So without further ado, let's go over to Allan. Allan, so lovely that you joined us.
It's great to be here, Mandy. I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you so much. So you are an expert in competitive strategy, and you've written many books. You've authored many books. You're a trainer. You're a subject matter expert. So when businesses and organisations need help with their strategy or with continuous delivery, competitive advantage, you go and help them. My question, Allan, is, first of all, how did you get there? How did you get here?
How did I get here?
Tell us your story.
My story.
Where did it all begin?
So, I am of an age where computers were just coming in when I was at school. And I was better at the computers than the teachers. And, at the age of 15, I was running the school computers. And I did double school phone bill one afternoon, which got us banned from using the modem that was then. So that was where it kind of started. And then I had a series of experiences. So I had a really bad time. So this is a lesson for anyone. J.K. Rowling once said she hit rock bottom, but rock bottom is a really good place to start building up. And I feel the same. Mm-hmm. My mum died just before I went to university. I went to university, I had a breakdown, so I dropped out. I end up not very far from here, just up the road from here in Slough, working for a computer company, packing computers. I was in the warehouse. And they kind of realised that I knew my way around machines. And so I got yanked out to the office and I started running. I was a systems administrator. I was in at 7 a.m. doing the tape reels and the printouts. And that was where my first improvement experience started. They were establishing a quality circle because their stock control wasn't good. And being a sysadmin, I was roped in and we were trying to work out what was going. This is my first experience of Kaizen, lean, all these kind of ideas, which, are fundamental to what we do now. And here I was as a 19-year-old doing it. And actually, it was me who I worked out why the stock levels they thought they should have were not the stock levels they had.
Interesting.
And that unwrapped it all. And, this is going back a few years, but that was data at work because we were looking at the data. We were using the systems. We were doing the analysis. We were building this quality improvement culture. So that's probably the nub of it. So that's where it began, I think.
Lovely. Wow. I mean, thank you for sharing that. That's a piece of history of yours that I'm sure many listeners out there will be quite, it's quite endearing, put it that way. So thank you for that. Can you, so you've gone back to your teen, your early years, early careers. Can you recall who was your mentor or influencer? Can you recall him?
When I think about mentors, I'm in the Vogon school here. So if you remember your Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Douglas Adams says, Mother Nature took one look at the Vogons and gave up on them. And the Vogons decided they didn't need Mother Nature and they were going to do themselves. I would love to say I had a mentor. I've kind of largely made it up as I've gone along. Mm-hmm. There's been a few people who at times who have been more of a mentor figure to me. There's a guy called Mark Harris, and in the mid-90s I was working with him. He's dropped out of the industry altogether. He runs a B&B in Andalusia or somewhere now. Mm-hmm. But under his wing is there I first really started to take testing, and the first time we were starting to write test first type ideas and automating our tests and stuff. So Mark was quite a mentor to me. And then later on, when I started to get interested in patterns, and we should talk about the patterns community, Kevlin Henney, who I'm sure many viewers will have come across, Kevlin Henney was a really big influence there. I think when I go to the patterns community, there's lots of people there who've been influential, but it's that very special community there. But has there been anybody? No, I kind of wish there had been, particularly trying to work as a solo consultant. You're just a constant battle of famine or feast.
Yeah.
And I think, I wish I had a mentor who'd help me through this.
Well, I suppose one could argue that, your mentor is your inner mentor. I'm a firm believer of the fact that we've all got this innate gift within us that, drives us and strives us and connects us as human beings.
I think so. And one of the techniques I learned a few years ago when I was doing my master's degree was writing a diary or a journal. So I try and take time each week, just 20 or 30 minutes, just sit down and I type it and I write it. It's only for me. I'm the only one who ever sees it. And just take a bit of time to write about what's on my mind, what I'm thinking, perhaps what my options are in a situation, perhaps why I'm troubled. Sometimes rehearse conversations. But that process of active reflection, as you say, you can be your own mentor. It is amazingly valuable. And, if I was giving advice to someone starting out, I'd say, get into this journaling, I think young people call it. I think it was a diary. Get into this positive self-reflection.
Lovely. That's a really valuable piece of advice to youngsters out there and to anybody, really. So thank you for sharing that. So how important is this kind of experience that you've had? So this journey that you started and the experience you've garnered, how valuable is that?
We learn in the classroom, we learn from our books, we learn through our own thoughts, but doing is learning of its own way, and particularly in my 20s when I was still programming, I had a succession of jobs. I probably changed jobs a bit too often, but I got this vast wealth of experience and I got to work on a real Death March Waterfall project. And the funny thing was, I was so glad to get on this project. It was for Rail Track, for people who remember them. And I'd spent the first 5 years after graduating feeling guilty. So what I've been taught in college, that we write down what we're going to do, we draw out a design, we execute the design, and we just test it and it all works. We'd never done that. And all the places I worked, it was not how you're supposed to do it. And what a surprise, it didn't work out. So I get to work on Rail Track. Oh my God. They had done it properly. We had, I kid you not, there were reams of paper. It was, 6 feet high. And you couldn't make a change without a load of paperwork. But we were doing it properly. And there was an even bigger disaster. And we're going through all of this, but we're all working really hard. Because although we don't believe in rail privatisation at the time, we can see how what we're going to do is going to make a difference. It's going to power every train in the country. That's meaningful. But it's an awful experience. But we had this camaraderie. But around the corner from where the office was, I could walk onto Charing Cross Road. And at lunchtime, I'd go and browse the bookshelves. And I found this book, Jim McCarthy, Dynamics of Software Development. So people won't have heard about this book here. But for me, it was my first Agile book. And Jim McCarthy was a manager at Microsoft. And he started to lay out things like, fix your bugs immediately, work in short cycles, do frequent releases. And this was completely against this big waterfall model I was working within. And it was revelatory. And my guilt had gone. I'd seen that things never worked as they should. And Jim was laying out what we'd now recognise as Agile. And I thought, oh my God, I can't wait to try this. And then I was lucky, a year or two later, I got to put a lot of those ideas into action. And those experiences, by doing so many different things in the early part of my career, those experiences were absolutely fundamental. I still draw on that kind of thinking. The other thing it's taken me a few years to recognise is the role my dyslexia has played.
Okay.
So I'm really dyslexic. So I've written all these books. Anyone who's ever read the early versions, which they're available on Leanpub, the grammar, the spelling, the punctuation, it's all over the place. I have a great copy editor. But I can be very creative. I can think about things and I can explain things. It's just the detail of the... I've come to realise that my dyslexia is a creative thing. It allows me to look at problems differently. It allows me to think, both broad and also quite narrow. The explaining of it might be difficult, but actually it gives me these insights. And I certainly didn't recognise that for many years. That's where I was coming from. And again, I was doing my master's degree. I reconnected with my dyslexia. And every time I look into it and I think about it, I can see how a lot of the way I work is what some people would call dyslexic thinking, because you're approaching it from a different point of view. So that can be a curse, not just for the spelling and writing. It can be a curse because you're looking at the world differently. You're staring at this thing saying, this does not make any sense. And you've got this army of people who seem to think it does make sense and are doing it. And you're thinking, this is crazy. But it can also be a blessing because you can reconceptualize things. And Project Myopia is a great example of that. In that, I'd look at the project model and the way teams attempted projects and think, this is crazy. This doesn't add up. And I remember at the first Agile on the Beach conference having dinner with Mary Poppendike. And there's a couple of people there, and we all got into this, how projects make no sense. And Mary saw it completely. And it's like, until then, I've been keeping this dirty little secret. And after that, we started to get more open about saying it. And you start to realise that you're not alone. Other people see this chaos.
Yeah. So this is really interesting. Thank you for sharing about your dyslexia and this kind of pattern. You talk about patterns. I mean, more and more people are now either identifying the need to go and assess themselves in terms of ADHD or anything else to try to help to improve themselves. And you've already touched upon great tools like journaling, self-reflection. So what would you advise organisations and businesses out there who have somebody like Allan Kelly who's going absolutely mad because all of the reams of paperwork or whatever the approach they are taking is actually, what would you advise them? Because they've got geniuses there.
Yeah.
How can they make success and also tap into the competitive advantage? How can they sort of...
Oof. Now that's not, I've not approached it from that point of view before. So good question. I think you have to give time to people. And so often our constant emphasis on time criticality, we don't have time to stop and reflect. We don't have time to listen to other points of view. We don't have time to conceive how it could be different. I remember there's an old joke about a boy going to school, and the policeman sees this boy wheeling his bike in the direction of school, and the policeman says, "Sonny, shouldn't you be in school?" And he says, yes, sir, I should be in school. I'm going as fast as I can. I know I'm late." And the policeman says, "Well, why don't you cycle to school?" He says, "Well, it would take time to get on the bike. I'd have to stop and get on the bike." And that kind of sums it up for me. We're so busy going somewhere fast that we don't have time to stop and to reflect. And so I remember, if I go back to a job I had a few years ago now, and I managed to build in a couple of processes in the organisation. And one was we started our own Tech Talk program. So 3:00 on a Friday afternoon became Tech Talk hour. This is back in the days when everyone was in the office, you know.
Yeah.
And they started off very tech talky, very tech. And one of the engineers would talk about their code they've been writing. We talk about project we're working on, or excuse me, so it'd be very much technical stuff.
Yeah.
But over time, we started to discover that the people, even the engineers, they were interested in what we do on the marketing. What's our sales pipeline work? What's our strategy? And we started to invite the wider company, the director of marketing, in to give tech talks. And these were among the best attended in the company. And it gave us a platform for not only hearing from other people and sharing, but also people could try ideas. Because I was always trying to fill this Friday afternoon slot. And frankly, I'd accept pretty much anything anybody was willing to offer up. I didn't want to end up doing them all myself.
Yeah.
So that meant that, I had some time and I could encourage people, and show that idea, talk about this stuff. And even if it's half-baked, bring it out. And if we had people go to conferences, I'd say to them, can you give us 5 or 10 minutes? Let's do a montage. Those people who went to our conference, can they do 5 or 10 minutes on what they learned, what sessions they went to, and just play that back to a wider audience?
This is wonderful because this idea and this practice that you encouraged, endorsed and made happen, this is a beautiful way to think about society today, where everything is done on the mobile, everything is digital. And I'm not against it. I love the digital world. But the coming together and sharing, because I don't know the statistics, but I know a lot of people my age and younger generations, we've moved away from churches and those sorts of gatherings. But the benefit, like you've just described, is humongous.
Yeah.
It's
We're conducting this vast experiment, and there are millions of things that the online world allows us to do and do things in different ways, and they're brilliant. But the question is, are we in danger of losing some other stuff? And we don't really know. I mean, some ideas come back again and again, and I think we'll see some things come back. I can already foresee a world in 10 years' time where someone says, hey, face-to-face working in the office is a really good productive thing.
Well, I must admit, initially when I invited you and shock horror hit you when you realised you had to travel in for this show.
Yeah.
But it was very gratefully received that you accepted. So I really do appreciate that. So you've shared some of your wonderful, valuable insights into what's shaped you and your personal stories. And you've not kind of shied away from the fact that you've got dyslexia and how you've actually used it as a tool because it's creative. So what do you do now? Tell people what you do now.
What do I do now? Well, okay, this is rather nebulous. I help companies get better. Right? So help and better. What is better? Yeah. Often I am a coach consultant, and sometimes that's like a regular gig. I will be there for, many days a week, and I'll be helping teams improve, and a little nudge here and a little try there and try a new process. Other times it's really light touch. If people have come across the work I did in Cornwall, that was a great example. For a while, I was the luckiest consultant in the country. 1 week a month I was in Cornwall. Wow. And there's probably over a dozen companies in the end, and we kick them off with like a kick-off workshop, and then I keep going back. I keep on topping them up and nudging them and suggesting here and talking about where they are. That kind of light touch coaching, I really like that. So sometimes I'm a very hands-on coach consultancy, and sometimes I'm very hands-off. Sometimes I just show up a bit of training. Sometimes I even take interim roles. Recently, I've been an interim product manager, and trying to help an organisation get their product right.
Brilliant.
I've been interim development manager in the past. I show up in lots of different ways. I think really at heart, I'm this author, writer, thinker type person.
Wonderful, wonderful. So if you could give people some advice in terms of someone who's just starting out, wanting to do something, maybe like an author, because I think that's quite it's quite a specialist skill, I would say, just to be able to structure your thoughts and create a non-fiction book. How would you advise people to?
How do I get started
with
writing? How do I get started writing? So remember, first of all, the person who learns the most from any book is the writer. Writing a book is about working through your own thoughts and your own logic and trying to express it in a way that isn't just this mass that's up here, right? So ultimately you're writing for yourself. And I do read descriptions. You can find them on the internet, how to write a best-selling book, how to earn $1 million. And it's the same formula we know from product development. Identify your audience, work out what the audience wants, satisfy that. My style of writing is much more, comes from within. It's something, a problem I want to tackle. I think you start off writing perhaps with a journal, perhaps find some other public journals, publications you can write for. I did a lot for the ACCU, a program where people may have come across them. I used to write a lot for them as well. I kind of cut my teeth. And then I moved up to writing patterns. Now that is a brilliant thing for an author. We'll come back in a moment. I kind of worked at writing bigger and bigger things. And then for my first book, it was still in the time where you get a book contract from a publisher. And you lay out what your table of contents is and what your topics are and what your audience is, and you have a deadline to meet, and you go off and you write this book you said you'd write. And my first couple of books were like that. Since then, I've done things with a company called leanpub.com. And if you want to dabble in writing, they're brilliant. Because you can write and start publishing and you just see where it goes. And it's really cheap. But let me talk about patterns conferences. This is really where I learned my skills. And even if you don't want to be a writer, I would encourage you all, especially if you think you're a coachy type person, to go to them. You learn so much about feedback. So patterns conferences, and I usually go to Europop, which is in rural Bavaria, every summer. So there's no speakers, there's no PowerPoint, there's no keynote. There's usually 50 to 60 people, and most of you have written a paper to be there. And if you've submitted a paper, you've already worked with a shepherd, like a mentor, a coach, to improve that paper in the months before you get to the conference. You sign up for the conference, you're going with your paper, you are assigned to a workshop group. So you're assigned to 6, 7, 8, 9 people. And for most of the conference, you're going to be with those people. And you are going to read each other's papers beforehand. And in the workshops, you're going to give feedback to each other. But in the feedback, when you're reviewing my paper, I can't speak. I sit on the side and this other half dozen people talk about my paper. And we have a format. We know how to do this, Jen. It's revelatory. Because you know the words you wrote, you know what you were trying to say. And now you get to hear how people interpret your words when you're not there. And you can't jump up and say, Mandy, you don't understand me, you got it wrong. Because, if you've written a book and someone's bought you're not there watching them read the book. And that's what you get in these sessions. You get this wonderful feel. So I'm scribbling away. All these notes are going down. Now, you learn about giving feedback and receiving, and it can be tough. So also at this conference, we have a games facilitator. Between sessions, we play games. One of the first games is to learn everybody's name. So in the first hour of the conference, you learn the name of every other person at the conference. No name badges.
Wow.
And we play these games, other games, between sessions. It builds confidence, it builds trust. It has a lot of play. The whole 4 days is this creative outpouring of very creative people in a very playful setting. We do some crazy things, but when your barriers are down, you learn so much. And some of the deepest conversations I've had are sitting naked in a Bavarian sauna with a beer. I kid you not.
Wow.
There's something that opens your mind and you can hear things. Brilliant conference, brilliant experience. We have people like myself who go back year after year. We have other people who drop in for a year. And between the other thing we do, we have ad hoc workshops and open space to discuss problems. So I'd encourage anyone to go there.
Okay.
If you want to be a writer, even more so, because it's one of the few places where you can learn how people interpret how you write. So you learn about making that paper better. You learn about feedback. You learn about the whole creative process.
Wonderful insights there. So valuable. Thank you for sharing. I'm just so drawn into every single word that's coming out of your mouth. You kind of reminded me about the expert. So this kind of expert position, when I was learning to drive, I had a driving instructor years ago who said to me, he said, do you rush around in your life? Do you, generally, are you rushing around? And I thought, yeah, well, I am. I've got small children, of course. Of course I'm rushing around.
Yeah.
And I've got a business and, yes, I'm looking after, elderly people as well. And yes, I'm rushing around. But I think that's the thing. The experts can really observe and, give you really, great feedback that you ordinarily wouldn't receive. And so I'll get some of the details from you for that so I can put it into the link in the show. So thank you. That's amazing. Let's do a 60-second. Let's just break the pattern up. So, what are you terrible at but secretly enjoy?
What am I terrible at but secretly enjoy? Playing board games. We sometimes play them as a family.
Okay.
And I usually lose. We've been playing Catan a lot for the last few years.
Okay.
I very rarely win, but I love playing board games.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And if there's one app on your phone that you should delete, but you never will, do you have?
Well, so I actually delete the apps. I always, YouTube keeps slipping back on and keeps getting deleted. I should not put it back on. One app, I kind of wish I could get rid of the email. If I could. I guess WhatsApp falls into the same bracket. Most of my notifications are turned off. The problem with WhatsApp and email is sometimes it's work related and sometimes it's family related, and you get rid of those. I have toyed with the idea of going back to a dumb phone.
I have as well.
But what's stopped me at the moment? Parking apps. I don't drive a lot, but when I do drive, 9 times out of 10 I need a parking app.
What are your thoughts about these apps that are appearing so much in our lives, and we're just now so it's the fabric of us, it's the currency? Do you have any wise words to people out there?
Afraid not. I'm struggling with the same as everyone. Some are really useful, and some of them you think it's a time sink.
And what about your views on electric vehicles? Do you have any views on?
I can see why they're good. I think there's some side effects perhaps we don't think about. I believe I hear the tyre particles and so on. I'm actually going to sidestep it all. So I've driven here today, but I've accepted and I'm working on my wife. This is our last car. Because we live in London. Okay. And our car only ever seems to do a few short trips during the week. Perhaps they can sit for weeks unused. And when we do a bigger trip, we might as well go and rent one. And we'd probably save money overall.
Probably. Yeah.
So, and I think, if I have thoughts on electric cars, it's probably a bit of a diversion. that actually what we should be going towards is better public transport and, e-bikes and e-scooters where you can do the last mile of your journeys. Now, I'll put that out there, and I will also admit that living in London 5 minutes from an Elizabeth line station, I am in a very privileged position.
Yeah, fair enough. No, fair enough. Thank you for sharing that. Let's do another 60-second. Okay, name one ridiculous thing you've bought in the name of a hobby passion.
Oh, air fryer.
Oh, right.
I blame Hannah Fry for this. So my family have been saying to me for a couple of years, we should have an air fryer. Air fryers are great. I keep saying, look, we've got a convection microwave, we've got a convection oven. That's 9/10 of an air fryer.
Yeah.
So we watched this Hannah Fry program about why air fryers. So I have one. So that's my Father's Day present.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it doesn't do very much more than the convection oven in a microwave.
It's true.
And cooking is my hobby.
So, Alan, you've spoken about your career and what you currently do, and it's just wonderful to hear your words and your advice for people. A question: how do you define success for yourself?
I think it's a lot easier to define success looking from the outside than from the inside out. In fact, think about it from a family point of view. I can't imagine how life could be better. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got 2 children who they may irritate me at times, but you couldn't ask for more. I have to pinch myself to think I have a house, I have the kids, and I have a house in West London. How did I ever afford this house?
Yeah.
So I never had family, house, those kind of things on my bucket list. But they make that they are success. Work-wise, I think I've done just about everything on my bucket list.
Yeah.
I think when you look at me from the outside, I've written books and things. I've got success there, but perhaps I overdwell on the things I haven't done. I think I'm past the point where I want to be a millionaire, where I want to have a yacht. But success is a good feeling, but I'm always a bit cautious because success says that was good, let's do it again. Failure is the motivator for change. When you fail, you want to do something different. So I think, there's still things I want to do. I changed the world a little bit with Project Myopia and saying to the world, look at projects. Deep down inside, I'm a big devotee of Peter Senge and the ideas of organisational learning. And when I'm teaching, but when I'm coaching and working in companies, I often imagine I'm trying to help my younger self. And I dream of these organisations that are true learning organisations that are harnessing all the talents, that are able to be reflective and able to improve as organisations. And I still feel I haven't seen or made the ideal, the type that Peter Senge, and that's what I'm still searching for. So until I get that, I'm motivated to keep doing it. If I had success, I might lose that motivation.
Speak about this a bit more in terms of organisations being more learning organisations, because organisations and businesses need to have a competitive advantage. They need to succeed and make profit. How can they change the narrative or accept this learning organisation that you're talking about?
So making a profit is essential, but it's a hygiene factor. And if you look at the evidence, if you look at the serious, deep academic stuff, companies that target profit underperform in the long run. Yes, you can get your profit up in the short term, like Amazon did yesterday, fire 15,000 people. But your long-term success, you've got to target other goals. You've got to have meaning. You've got to have purpose. And companies that are able to have that purpose, but also reflect and improve and accept that they can always get better and build the mechanisms, whether it's making time, we talked about, psychological safety, valuing change, valuing bottom-up change particularly. those organizations have more longevity and over the long term more profit. But there's so many things you need to get right there. And we've seen this cycle since at least the 1950s when it started to be recognized. Yeah, anyone who's read McGregor, Theory X and Theory Y, that is so much comes down to Theory X and Theory Y. And that came in the 60s and 70s. We saw some of that and it kind of went down, and Peter Senge re-enlivened it. And for me, the thing we call Agile has always been organizational learning. For me, the only thing you can do wrong in Agile is to do things the same as you did 3 months ago. And I think that's where a lot of organizations today that are practicing Agile are getting it wrong, because they've got that Agile Bible and they think doing Agile is ticking everything in the Bible. And no, Agile is about doing things that aren't in the Bible because you've learned and changed. And I fear at the moment we're going into a bit of another dip in this as the world chases after AI. The irony is, to get the most out of AI, we've got to rethink the way our businesses operate. AI may allow you to write a document faster, it may allow you to code faster, but to get the real benefits out of it, we've got to think about the way we're working in our processes, and we need more experimentation. So we need more organizational learning, we need more agile thinking, we need more of this stuff to get the true benefits from the latest technology.
That's very interesting and really insightful in terms of the change part, where, change should happen. You're saying, you're suggesting every 3 months change. And organizations obviously find that quite disruptive because they want their processes to be robust and people to. So it's quite for big organisations, it's a big take for them to consider.
So it's about accepting diversity and accepting that this team here could be doing things different to that team over there. What's important is they're both delivering outcomes. And at some level in your reporting structure, you probably do want to have some common metric that tells you that both teams are going in the right direction. But I remember seeing this when I was at Reuters years ago, and they tried to become CMMI level 5, which was the big thing. Or CMM level 3 they're aiming for. 5 was way off.
Yeah.
And the problem was that the team I was in was a real-time data system that took data out of exchanges and displayed it on a Reuters terminal within a second. Times like less than a second. And the processes we were following had to be completely different to the teams at Reuters that were writing software that went on CDs, as it was then, and was shipped out. One size doesn't fit all. They can learn from each other, but a truly robust organisation can tolerate those differences and can allow those experiments. Because if you make teams work the same way, you're stamping out experimentation. You're stamping out difference. So if you have the perfect way of working today, fine. But once you enshrine it, is it going to be the perfect process tomorrow? Because the more you enshrine it, the more difficult it is to change. I met somebody who worked for an aerospace company once, and he said, our problem is we are CMM level 5, and we get contracts from the US Defense Department and elsewhere because we are CMM level 5. But level 5 specified that you were improving and advancing. Changing like that was high risk for them, because if they changed and lost their level 5 accreditation, they wouldn't get the work. And it was also very expensive because all the documentation had to be updated and everyone needed to be retrained. So what they had to do was to change just enough to prove they were changing and improving, but not so much that they took the risk or the cost.
Wow. So this is almost going back to a point you made earlier, which is to do it slower, so you could still change every 3 months, but maybe the change shouldn't be so big.
Yeah. It's back to, like you, I'm a bit of a bull in a china shop. I race around doing stuff. And it's sometimes difficult to slow down.
Yeah.
But really what you want is lots of small.
Yeah. Incremental. type. Yeah, that's so good. Alan, you shared so many brilliant insights.
Well, thank you for asking. It's been fun to offload.
It's just been brilliant. If you had a billboard for future professionals, what would it be?
Future billboard for future professionals. I guess I'd have to say learn to reflect and to write.
Yeah, wonderful.
Learn to communicate.
Wonderful. Alan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that's been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed it and taken some lovely, wonderful, valuable insights from Alan. Please subscribe. I'm a newbie, early podcaster. Your endeavours of subscribing, sharing and liking would be hugely appreciated. Thank you so much and look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you.